want to congratulate the club on its big 4-0, the 40th anniversary. Who would have thought 40 years later we'd be here celebrating the successes of the club?
But in the beginning, the club was called Rockland Lake Runners Association as RRR, and we kept that name for the 6 years that I was president of the club. In fact,
one of the first things that it did was push to change the name from Rockland Lake Roadrunners to Rockland Roadrunners.
We had one of the lawyers in the group, I forgot if it was Ed Callan or Teresa Colleen, changed the name legally to Rockland RRR, Rockland Roadrunners.
And then a few years after that, we redesigned the logo, and that's what we used on the t-shirts and sweatshirts, things of that nature.
I'd like to give a tip of the cap to Pete Mastali, the founder of the club. Pete tapped into the running boom of which Rockland was a part back in the early 1980s.
Right.
and I walk in and they say, you know, Pete just resigned as president. Do you want to be president? I was like, huh? And
the summer track workouts were extremely popular right from the get-go under Coach Walt Johnston from 1984 on. We called him Dr. Payne because of the what he inflicted upon the runners in a good way.
My nickname was Dr. Payne. He took us to the brink, but always left time for a drink. We started with a friend of mine who you haven't seen in many years, Peter Mastali. We planned the workouts and held them at Nyack High School track.
And the races, there were a lot more racing opportunities that came our way as a result of the intervention of the Rockland Roadrunners. Some races came and went, such as the Twilight Twosome, the couples race that was patterned after the Trevera Twosome race.
I took over as club president. The club was putting on its first race. It was called the Twilight Twosome. And we did it for about 5 or 6 years.
Twilight Twosome, you had to have a female and a male, and you had the age groups. People really wanted me because I was even old then. So then I did it one year with Larry, and we won. And then the next year, I
unceremoniously found out that she dumped me for a faster runner.
Races like the Women's Distance Festival, the South Nyack race, which became a 10-miler after the Rockland Roadrunners took it over, the Hook Mountain Half, and of course the Turkey Trot. All these races were formed within the first 7 to 10 years of the club.
The Women's Distance Festival, which was always one of my favorite races. And so I decided to go to the meeting, the planning meeting. And at the end of that meeting, I walked out as the race director. I don't know how that happened when I've only been to 2 meetings ever.
And we worked races. We started the women's race, the South Nyack 10-miler. We started the Turkey Trot, the Wadika race. And we helped out at all the other big races, and that's how the club got to grow.
It took a real village to help me put that race on. I had no idea what I was doing, but the president at the time, Tony Malucci, helped me, Maureen Colleen, Enilda Indike, Ann McGrath was the former race director, Cheryl Coulter-Schloss was another former race director, Bernie Casserly, Sue Hale, so many people.
The history of our famous winter marathon, let me show you a couple of the shirts. This is 1994. We paid, I think, $250 to get it certified, and it went up and down the north entrance to the south entrance, back and forth, a combination of 13 times.
He used to call me up, not every time, but a lot of times, and saying, I need some help. I said, so what's going on? He said, I haven't got the insurance for the race. And I was then working in the city, so I would go run over to the Runners Club.
That's right.
And pick up the race insurance fee.
The weather forecast was ominous that particular day, and we were going to cancel the race because of snow and ice. Well, I get a knock on my door when I'm in my house, and my wife says, there's 3 or 4 guys here from Canada, and only one speaks English, the other were French Canadians. And we actually held the race for 2 men from Ireland and like 4 or 5 people from Canada.
which really exploded during that tenure, my tenure as president, with the Thanksgiving ring. And Mike Greco took that over. And
One of the people that I met at the Twilight Twosome was Dave Goldwasser. I had never met Dave before.
Is that right?
And Dave used to come and he would bring Marissa, and him and Marissa would run as a team. There was a male-female in twosome. And that's how I met that. You know, Dave and his daughter, who now we have a charity named after.
I started a weekly running column, and there was plenty of material to write about. It was very fertile ground. All these legends that you hear about from the Rockland Roadrunners, people like Don Cordisco, Bill Fortune, George Whitaker, they all are the subjects of great press coverage.
And I think Pete Mastali, the founder, was asking for volunteers. And so newsletters was my thing always. But I remember I took that over. He would give me the info and I would type it up, and I probably took it someplace to be Xeroxed. And how that evolved into the printed, lovely 8-page black and white thing that it ended up being for many years, I'm not sure. Different people would send in articles. First, there was the president on the front page, and then some of my contributors were Ann Singer. She was in the middle of her 50 marathon quest, nearing the end of it. Ernie Joseph, he liked to write. Roy Abraham, and I drove them down to Minuteman Press in Nanuet, and they did it all. Then they gave me back my, I'll say 300 copies. And then my family and I, my kids said, I remember putting those newsletters together and put the race applications in and stamping them, and then I drove them to the post office.
Examples of activities that the Rockland Roadrunners had were the group runs on weekday mornings and on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, usually at Rockland Lake.
Yeah, here we are at Rockland Lake at the fishing station where we met as groups.
That's right.
On Sundays.
Go meet Sue Hale and Jesse Hackle, Bernie, George, Dougie, Bill Fortune, that whole group.
The club, I started running here slowly about 1980, and I met a few of the people who are still around today: Marie Colleen, Richie Tinga, Fred Turk. Many of us. We started what we called the 6 o'clock group.
We had such a good time, and then as the time went on, we decided we should have a bagel afterwards, so we would always go to David Bagels. It wasn't really a rivalry, but I think none of us understood why they wanted to get up so damn early, because none of us did.
All right, everybody wired this for many years. I think it's getting bad. It's actually a local treasure.
I'm going to start just by saying that Ernie was very instrumental in starting Team RRR. And if it wasn't for Ernie's leadership at that time, we wouldn't have been part of Team RRR with New York Roadrunners.
So Team RRR participation started actually around 2004 when we started running and registering as a Team RRR. Then Laura and I became captains of the team, and we organized those races going into the city, all the logistics from carpooling to running the races and connecting with New York Roadrunner. The name that comes to my mind, getting the New York Roadrunner runner of the year, is Laura, Josephine Patton, Carol Gazinski, Marie Kylin in the Swifty 60s.
The team was great. We had some very talented women and men. But for women that are that fast, we needed fast men to run with.
Say that the engine driving forward this enterprise for 40 years has been the people of Rockland Roadrunners. In the early years, there were people like Mike Angarola, who was the president for 2 terms, initiated programs that are still in effect today. His wife, Ann McGrath Angarola, Bernie Casserly, who has done pretty much everything there is to do within the Rockland Roadrunners. He's was a president and a volunteer for all the races. And other key volunteers like Joyce McGee, Dennis Rankin, Donnie Leader, so many contributed to the success of this club in the early years and continue to do so.
We had some great people that were there all the time. One of them being Sue Thies. Every time I came down, she was there. Ellie McKenna was always volunteers. Becky was volunteer.
There's about a 15% active participation or leadership participation.
It was amazing how easy it was back then to get people to volunteer for, and it's totally different than.
I think one of the things that the club can hang its hat on, one of its calling cards, is its fundraising for charities in Rockland County. Meals on Wheels, People to People, United Hospice, Center for Safety and Change, all of these.
Get down here around 6 o'clock to run, and all my friends are running friends.
That group of friends of runners were our lifelong friends. Those were our best pals.
It's like a family.
I met the greatest bunch of people. I'm so blessed to have known all of them.
It was a great team, a great group of people, and we've been together all these years.
I met my wife through the club.
They've been there for every event, life cycle event, good, bad, and whatever. They're always supportive of it.
But it was really a wonderful experience, and it's a wonderful club.
All of them are moving out of the county.
And now we're all moving out. Now we're all going where it's warmer and we get away from this.
So congratulations on the 40th anniversary. I hope to be around for the 50th. Happy running and go Rockland.